Recording. Okay, let me welcome you again. I have a number of agenda items, and the first one I want to talk about is some ideas on the Scrum of Scrum and product backlog issue. So first, to make the problem clear. So we've been working in Work Package 7 essentially on an ad hoc basis, kind of grooming the issue tracker, but more in an ad hoc, spontaneous way. And to really fulfill the project objectives for the rest of the time that we have, another year and 3 months, I really want to make sure that we work as effectively as possible. One thing that we identified, this was actually initiated by Work Package 4 by Mark, that we're really missing like a little bit the high-level direction setting. And that's why we thought about introducing a Scrum of Scrum, where basically Work Package 1 would oversee an overall product backlog that then would trickle down to the various work packages. Okay, so Peter's working on that, but it will be a while until this is done. So I thought about ways of making sure that we can already start working on the right things without the process being in our way. And what I want to do right now is show you how I intend to do that. So to start with, I created, simply by collecting information from all over the place, a product backlog of product backlog items that are relevant for Work Package 7. And a backlog item is typically a user story. That's why they all start with US here. And the typical form of a user story is, as a so-and-so, I want so-and-so for whatever reason. So for example, you see here, as a modeler and validator, I need a user-friendly data dictionary so that I can work effectively. Now again, one thing that we really have to do for making this work is collaborating with the other work packages to make sure that this list has the correct items in the correct order. So I started this as a wiki page, but now just for playing around with it, I migrated that to the playground repository that we have. And you can see that I put in here all the user stories with labels for owner and stakeholders. So for example, the qualification plan, I have stakeholder Work Package 1 and 4, and the owner is Work Package 7. In fact, everything here is owned by Work Package 7 because this currently is just for Work Package 7. So one takeaway here is that every user story has a label. And the reason is we have to work cross repositories. So I envisioned that for every user story that we're working on, we're also creating a label in our repository. But what's really problematic about this list here is that it's essentially in a random order. There's some sort options here, but they're not really useful in order to show priority. And that's where I want to bring in a new tool. And I'm like very wary of bringing in new tools because new tools create new complications. The tool I want to bring in is called Waffle, Waffle.io. And what's interesting here is that you log in with your GitHub account. The data you see sits on top of GitHub. And I think it's easier to just show this rather than to basically explain it. So let me log in here. And you see you can log in with public or private wrappers. So I log in here with the public repository. And it should, in fact, actually just let me quickly allow it all. Okay, so. Actually, I should have logged in before. Okay, here we go. And you see that I already added the playground and toolchain boards. And with the plus button, you basically get all the repositories that you have. So I could basically add for each repository in openETCS a board. But for now, where do I get back? Yeah, I only created those tools, and I want to show you the playground, which is basically sitting on top of these user story issues that I just created. And you see a board which is organized into columns. And here's the nice thing. So you see each of these cards represents an issue. So for example, I know that for work packet 3, that's what Bernd told me, the data dictionary is very important. That's down here, issue with the number 4. So because it's important, I can just pull it up to the top. So you see that in contrast to GitHub, here you can actually have a specific manual order of the items. And it also supports some kind of workflow. So what you're seeing here is the default workflow. So again, so the data dictionary is important. So we would basically get new items in here, and then on a regular basis, we would groom new items to make sure that they're properly documented. And you can edit them here, and this is exactly the same information that you have on GitHub. Everything you write here appears on GitHub. The labels you set here appear on GitHub, and so forth. So it's completely synchronized. And when we're ready with this, we can put it into our ready queue by simply dragging it over here. And you see that it updated the issue. And if I go back to GitHub and look at issue number 4, which is here, you see that it got a new label. It got the label ready, which was set by Waffle to indicate that it's in this column. So again, this data is synchronized. And so basically we can here create our backlog items, product backlog items that are properly groomed. And then if we start working on one, we can move it over here. So it's in progress again. The label is updated. And when one is done, you can just move it over here. Or let's just leave it here for now. So if I do a reload here, you'll see that it now should have the label in progress. And so when I basically say, okay, I'm done with it, we have implemented that, you close it here, you'll see that on Waffle, it automatically moved to done because it got closed. So
is it possible to have questions in between? Or
yes, of course.
Again? Okay. The speed which we just see, is this because of GitHub or is this because of the net meeting, the GoToMeeting? Do you have experience?
What do you mean by speed? Did you see a lag?
Yes, it was very slowly.
Okay, so here things happen very quickly, so assume it's the GoToMeeting.
Okay, fine. Let's assume it's okay. Typically, when you work on the backlog, you would do a breakdown of the user stories in smaller pieces.
That's the next thing.
You have to do.
Yes.
Is this something you can do?
Well, yeah, that's basically the next thing. I completely agree with that. And so the answer is yes and no. So this is basically where I see the product backlog, and that's why I put it into the playground repository. But we, of course, want to work in our work package 7 repository, and there's no easy way to combine the two. So let me open the issue tracker. So here's our issue tracker, and this is basically what I've done here. So for user stories that we are working on, I created labels, and to make them stand out, I created them in black. So we have the user story developer docu, and if I go back to Waffle here, you also see that we have here developer docu. So this is managed manually. That's why I think it's so important to have unique identifiers that are human readable for the backlog issues, but I don't see a better way than to manually syncing them. But now that you basically have their labels here, you can, of course, create multiple issues for an individual user story. So I would basically envision that once the product backlog item is groomed properly, the owning work package takes it and breaks it down into issues within the work package repository. So that's the workflow that I envision. Does that answer your question, Bernd?
Yes, it gives at least a hint.
So one of the reasons why I did it this way is because for the people who are actually doing the work, the participants of the various work packages, they don't really have to learn anything new. So basically, as you can see, our issue tracker in work package 7 didn't change much, except that we may have some slightly different names of the labels and maybe some slightly different labeling, but ultimately little changes for the people doing the work. It creates some overhead for people like you and me who basically have to regularly groom the overall product backlog and then basically make sure that the labels are synchronized. But again, I think like a very important issue here is that once we assign a label to a user story, that we do not change that anymore. Of course, basically when you have a user story here, hang on a second, the actual information, qualification plan, what does it mean? The actual information you put in the description. Actually, here's the description, and that's just a comment. So obviously, it can even be edited here. So obviously, here you should elaborate in detail what this backlog item is actually about. So this is the one thing, and the other thing which probably most of you know or maybe not know about once you have an issue. Do you all know about this progress bar? This is basically, you can have within an issue a progress bar by creating checkboxes. So basically, we can have 3 levels of breaking down. The way I envision it, we have one issue for each product backlog item, which becomes a label within the repository. Within the repository, you break it down into a number of issues. And if you need to, you can break down those issues even further with those checkboxes. So this is basically all I wanted to talk about. This is where we are. And I want to stop at this point. Are there some quick, urgent questions? Does it make sense? Is it stupid? Is everybody reading email?
No. I think the approaches make sense, yeah.
Eventually, I would really like to hand this over to you and Peter to basically start managing the overarching product backlog from work package 1. And if you see reasons to modify that, by all means, go ahead. But at least for me, I mean, I really noticed that I have a problem that I'm losing track of which features are important for the other work packages and which ones are basically we shouldn't even work on. And having, like, at least for the time being, like a work package 7 specific product backlog that also allows us to play a little bit around with these tools and find a way of implementing a process in a non-intrusive way, that's basically my objective here.
I've got a question.
Yes.
So how do you see the prioritization which you do in Waffle if you only use GitHub?
You don't. You see them only here. So the only information that is in Waffle that is not in GitHub is the order of the items.
And how do you make the prioritization visible? How do you plan to make it visible within GitHub?
Not at all. I would suggest that those people who need to see the order use Waffle.
And is there a, let's say, a log when prioritization is changed?
Good question.
Do you have a history in changing of prioritization?
I don't.
That's an important.
No.
That's an important issue. You need to know. You need some transparency on who's done it, and you also need access rights.
Then we should look at another way to make prioritization visible.
Okay. The way the tools the tools that GitHub has, you see that there's like a sorting field. There's nothing to me that helps us making an order visible, except maybe, you know, having like 10 distinct labels numbered from 1 to 10.
You could put them in milestones. That's a possible way.
Yeah.
Or labels, yes.
Okay. So we have definitely an issue identified here. My suggestion is to use the remaining 10 minutes to just quickly talk about the workshop. And then for those who do have time, we can continue like discussing what to do here. Although I'm not even sure whether there how much there's to be discussed for the workshop. But basically, is it okay if we postpone that by 10 minutes? Do you have time to talk a bit about this a little bit more? Because what you just raised are very good questions.
I think it's not so very important because then we just shouldn't use the prioritization by moving up and down the issues, because there's other ways like priority 1, 2, 3 or something like this.
Okay. What I would suggest is, I mean, I would really like to hand this over to work package 1. And the only reason why I've been pushing this forward a little bit is because I really want to get an overview of our tasks and our priorities for the time being. But I would really like at some point to hand this over to work package 1 to document a process that everybody's using so that we have consistency across work packages. So this is essentially just, for me, a temporary solution for dealing with work package 7. So, I mean, this is essentially raising the question, Bernd, and I don't know what the story is with Peter, when you guys can take over this and basically revise it and throw it back to Mark, me, and the other work package leaders.
Peter's sick for the rest of the week, and I would not take this in the meantime, so you have to wait for him.
Okay.
He should be back next week.
Okay, good. So, I mean, for the time being, I'll play around with this. I mean, like in particular, I want to really start on a regular basis doing grooming sessions with, at least in the beginning, with you, Mark, and you, Bernd, and as representatives for work package 3 and 4. And so we have for now the playground, which is certainly better than what we are currently having, which is basically just the spreadsheet that we produced. So again, the question specifically, what do you suggest as next steps?
What I would like to suggest is to have a Scrum grooming session at the end of the time slots, maybe before the PCA, every Friday.
That sounds great. The next question is basically how we do the grooming. So yet another option is to do the ordering and prioritizing simply in a wiki page. If we do it here on a wiki page, we certainly have a complete history of what happened when. So this is.
We also have history. So.
Sorry?
On the issue, we also have history if we label, like for example, prioritization.
Yes. We just don't have no good way of showing things in a certain order.
You can't order according to labels. This is what you mean, or?
Maybe there's a trick on doing that. It's certainly not offered by default.
You cannot sort, at least not without a tool. You can only select parts of it.
Yeah, that's basically the problem here. Okay. So I think we definitely have to move forward with this. So again, my plan is to work with this and basically to just solicit feedback from Bernd and Mark, from you two, until we have a proper process and just basically try to get along somehow this way. But I mean, one thing that we already identified by doing this is, for example, Bernd, I think you commented on the SysML2B activities, basically saying, well, what's actually the foundation for this? So I think having this kind of process in place will definitely help us to identify activities that don't belong to any specific user story or product backlog item. And I think this is like one of the big problems that we had in the past, that we weren't even clear why we were doing certain things. I mean, it's fine that people want to pursue their own interests, but it has to be aligned with the project objectives. So one suggestion, I mean, I like what Mark suggested. How about this Friday, we insert a product backlog grooming session for Friday after the meetings? That's more a question for you, Bernd.
Yeah, can we start this next week?
Okay, that's fine.
This week we have the InnoTrans. There's a lot of activities, not with the project. And next week, hopefully, Peter is back.
Okay, so let's plan that.
I can put it in the agenda. The question is whether we have it in the afternoon, separated by break, which means that people leave the meeting, or whether we extend the time.
Well, my suggestion would be, this is like a perfect topic for the Friday PCM meeting, right? To basically decide how much time we need, where we want to put it, how we want to shift the meetings around. So let's.
Okay. I put it on the agenda for this Friday to have a look how we organize it, and we can set it up then on Friday for the next week.
Perfect. Then let's start it in the following week. And in the meantime, we should also nominate somebody who decides how we want to represent these things in the issue tracker. And I mean, my suggestion would be to give that to Peter, unless you want to do it, Bernd.
No, it's perfect.
And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to record the session. So, okay. Okay, which reminds me. So I think then we have a plan. Let me stop the recording.